air inside the interstellar warship was thick with tension, an almost palpable weight pressing down on its occupants. The alien crew, members of the formidable and enigmatic Zareph species, moved about the ship with a calculated urgency. Their exoskeletal bodies gleamed under the dim, bluish light of the control room, and their insect-like eyes scanned various monitors. Amid the hum of machinery and faint murmurs, the atmosphere grew colder as a figure of authority stepped into view. Commander Vorik, a towering Zareph with an aura of undeniable authority, surveyed the scene. His posture was rigid, his every movement exuding an air of impatience. Vorik was known for his ruthless efficiency and his disdain for weakness. His sharp mandibles clicked together as he addressed the gathered officers. "Our queen has been injured in battle," Vorik announced, his voice resonating with a metallic edge. "But her wounds are unsightly. They threaten to tarnish her image as the supreme leader of the Zareph." A murmur rippled through the room, but none dared to speak out. The Zareph queen, revered and feared in equal measure, had been gravely wounded during a recent skirmish with a rival alien faction. Her injuries, though treatable, were severe enough to compromise her regal appearance. For a species that valued perfection above all else, this was an unforgivable blemish. "She will not be treated aboard this ship," Vorik declared, his voice brooking no argument. "Her condition must be concealed until a proper solution can be found. We cannot allow weakness to define our leadership." Silence fell over the room as the crew absorbed the implications of his words. The Queen's life hung in the balance, yet her commander refused to act. It was an order that defied logic and compassion, but none among the Zareph dared to challenge Vorik's authority. The decision seemed final, until an unexpected voice broke through the oppressive quiet. "This is madness." The words were spoken in a language foreign to the Zareph, yet their meaning was unmistakable. All heads turned to the source, a human medic named Dr. Eleanor Hayes. Captured during a previous conflict, Eleanor had been kept aboard the warship as a prisoner, and an oddity, her medical expertise occasionally exploited by the Zareph. She stood now with defiance in her eyes, her slender frame dwarfed by the imposing figures around her. Vorik's gaze snapped to Eleanor, his multifaceted eyes narrowing. "You dare to speak out of turn, human?" he hissed. "I dare," Eleanor replied, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Your queen is dying, and you're more concerned about appearances? That's not leadership. That's cowardice." The room erupted into shocked murmurs. Vorik took a menacing step toward Eleanor, his exoskeleton clicking ominously. "You overstep your place, medic. You are nothing but a tool, a prisoner on this ship." Eleanor's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "Maybe I am a prisoner," she said, "but I'm also a doctor. And I'm telling you that if you don't let me treat her, your queen will die." For a moment, it seemed as though Vorik might strike her. The room held its collective breath. Then, with a sharp wave of his clawed hand, Vorik dismissed her. "Do as you wish," he snarled. "But if you fail, you will suffer the consequences." Eleanor wasted no time. She hurried to the medical bay, where the queen lay on a sterile slab, her once magnificent form now marred by deep gashes and burns. The sight was both horrifying and heartbreaking. Despite the queen's alien physiology, Eleanor could see the pain etched into her features. Gathering her resolve, Eleanor set to work. She had studied Zareph biology extensively during her captivity, driven by equal parts curiosity and necessity. Now, that knowledge became her greatest asset. With trembling hands, she sterilized the wounds and began the painstaking process of suturing the queen's damaged tissue. Hours passed in a blur of concentration. Eleanor worked tirelessly, her focus unwavering despite the stakes. The medical bay was eerily quiet, save for the hum of equipment and the rhythmic sound of her breathing. Occasionally, she glanced at the queen's face, searching for any sign of improvement. Finally, as she secured the last suture, the queen's eyes fluttered open. Eleanor froze, her heart leaping into her throat. The Zareph queen's gaze locked onto hers, and for a moment, neither of them moved. "You." The queen's voice was a low, resonant hum, tinged with both curiosity and disbelief. "You saved me." Eleanor nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I did what I could. You're not out of the woods yet, but you'll live." The queen's gaze softened, a faint glimmer of gratitude breaking through her regal demeanor. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you, a human, risk yourself for me?" Eleanor hesitated, then spoke from the heart. "Because life is worth saving, no matter whose it is, and because someone had to do what your commander wouldn't." The queen regarded her in silence, then closed her eyes, a faint sigh escaping her. It was not a sound of defeat, but of understanding. When Eleanor emerged from the medical bay, exhaustion etched into her features, she was met with a wall of Zareph soldiers. At their head stood Commander Vorik, his expression unreadable. "The queen lives," Eleanor said, her voice firm despite her weariness. "She'll recover." Vorik studied her for a long moment, his mandibles clicking softly. Then, without a word, he turned and walked away. The soldiers parted to let him pass, their expressions a mix of confusion and newfound respect for the human who had defied their leader. In the days that followed, Eleanor's act of courage rippled through the Zareph ranks. The queen, true to Eleanor's prediction, began to recover, and though her scars remained, they became a symbol of resilience rather than weakness. For the first time, the Zareph began to question the values that had governed their society for centuries. As for Eleanor, she found herself no longer treated as a mere prisoner. The queen herself requested her presence, seeking her counsel and insight. A fragile alliance began to form between the human and the alien monarch, one built on mutual respect and the shared belief that compassion could transcend even the vastest of divides. And though the road ahead was uncertain, Eleanor knew one thing for sure. She had changed the course of history, not with weapons or power, but with the simple act of choosing to care.